Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so like I said before, I'm showing a puzzle at the beginning. I'm showing the solution to the previous puzzle at the beginning, and then I'm showing a new puzzle at the end of the video. So stick around for the end. And I just got thousands and thousands of puzzles, so I'll just be keeping them coming. But like I said, this one was blockade. And I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I'm not really sure why it's called blockade, because it doesn't really seem like you're like you're blockading anything. But it is a little trap here. So I mean the move that should have screamed to everybody is rook takes let me get right over here, is rook takes e4. And like I said, because it's one of those situations when you're doing puzzle, a lot of times these moves are kind of like, really just kind of easy to spot. You're just thinking it has to be something crazy like this. So, like I said, rook takes e4, pawn takes e4. And I think maybe the blockade has to do with the fact that this pawn is now kind of blocking this pawn from moving. I don't know. You got e7 attacking the rook. You got rook coming over to to e8. You have bishop to e3, and so that forces the queen down to b4. You have rook to c4, that forces the queen down to a3, and then you have queen to b1. And now you have multiple different ways that you can trap the queen. And so like if the pawn pushes, you have bishop here. If the queen does nothing, I mean, you even have this or you have this. There's just so many different ways the queen is trapped. So if you found rook takes e4, then you have a good like intuition for sacrifices and stuff like that. So, those kind of moves should they should kind of stand out to you. But getting to the game. Now, I think a lot of you guys might be following the Skilling, the Champion Chess Tour, Skilling Open. This last final match between Magnus Carlsen and Wesley So, it's been kind of insane. They pretty much up to this point have it's been 6 wins. And so all the rest of the time during the tournament, you saw like a win here and a win there, but you've seen, nothing but wins the entire time. There hasn't even been a draw between them. It's kind of crazy. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the game here and see what we got. All right, so we have d4. We got knight to f6. We got c4. All right, we got e6, knight to f3. And there's so many different ways this can go. I mean, you got d6s. Oops. You got g6s. You got d5s or c5s, you got d5s, you got b6s, and typically you're going to like a queen's gambit type of situation. That's what we do have. We have the queen's gambit declined, and so we have knight to c3, and so we have the semi-tirage, this is similar to a couple of the other games I covered in the past here, in the recent past. This is lines that Wesley So and Magnus Carlsen have gone down before, so it's nothing new. So we have c takes d5, c takes d4, nice little in betweener real quick. Queen takes d4, e takes d5. We have the pawn sacrifice of e4. It's not too bad. I mean, it's definitely not lost. It's probably not the strongest continuation here, but it does get us into pretty even waters. So we have pawn takes e4, queen takes d8 with check, king takes d8, only move. We have knight to g5. Of course, this is a clear direct threat of, throwing a little family fork on this. Well, not family fork, just a regular typical fork. And so, we got to defend against that. So we have bishop to e6. You got knight takes e6, pawn takes e6, bishop to c4, knight to king to e7. We have castles for white. So we got knight b to d7, and so we got rook to d1. And this rook to d1 is actually the novelty of the game. This is the first time that this has been played before, and so this is a brand new position. Kind of crazy looking. I mean, black looks. Black has has an extra pawn, but it's kind of a double pawn, so it doesn't look like the best pawn ever. So it's a slight advantage for black, not anything crazy though. All right, so we have rook to c8, throwing a nice little attack on that undefended bishop. So we got bishop back to e2. All right, so we got a6, making sure we don't have any knight to b5 situations here. And so we got bishop to e3, We got rook to c6. We have rook a to c1. Yeah. We have king back to d8. Kind of putting yourself in the pin, but you know, it's not really something that white can, you know, super exploit. All right, so we got bishop to d4, bishop to d6, and we have knight to a4. And this is a situation where the saying is true to form. A knight on the rim is grim, or it's also a knight on the rim is dim. You know, this is a very you know, trying position for white now. You've kind of just wasted a move putting the knight on the rim. It's not really serving, you know, the best purpose over there. It's not being able to get redirected anywhere. I mean, it can't go to b6, it can't go to c5. So it just, I mean, it just invites the trade of the rooks and kind of gives white, you know, the c file, or gives gives black the c file after the rook. Yeah, exactly. So is it? Okay, let's get sharp. Let's not. Okay, cool. All right, so we got rook takes c1. We got rook takes c1. An interesting variation. Instead of going knight to a4, would be let me see here. Not knight to a4. It would be f3. And so, you know, we see you know, bishop to f4, just trying to throw a little side move on the rook here. So the rook will go back to b1. We see rook to d6 and king to f2. You know, just some more solid continuation. But like I said, we do have rook to a4, rook takes, and we have king to e7. And so we have g3, and so we have rook to d8. You know, seeing if after these pieces move, we might have like a little discovery on this bishop here. And so we got bishop to e3. All right, so knight to d5. You know, redirecting that knight, getting it all nice little central square. All right, so we have bishop to g5, doing the same thing with the other knight. So, you know, when you're kind of looking at it, you know, from the perspective of, you know, kind of what you want to do in certain positions, I mean, you see that this position is fairly open. And, you know, of course, once these central pawns either get pushed or they get traded, I mean, you're just going to have a completely open board. So, you know, you're kind of thinking that, you know, white has an advantage here. You know, even though they're down a pawn, you're thinking, okay, they got the two bishops. You know, the bishops should be able to do, you know, a lot. But you guys will see later on that having two bishops in an open position isn't always one. It's a nice rule of thumb to go by, but it's not always, you know, you know, I like to say rainbows and butterflies. And so we got knight to c5, and this just really just forces the trade because, you know, you have the knight attacking this pawn. You also have the knight attacking this pawn because this knight is pinned. And so you don't really have a good way to defend both of those at the same time. So, you know, you're kind of forced to trade here. So you got bishop takes c5, and you got rook takes c5. And so, you know, now we have a true bishops versus knights in game, or, you know, in game coming up at least. So we got h6, knocking one of the bishops back. So we got bishop back to c1. And so we got knight to b4. And this is a really nifty move right here. Because, you know, not only are you attacking this undefended pawn, you're also threatening here, which is going to like fork the rook and fork the bishop. And you know, definitely you don't want to take with the bishop because that's just going to give black, you know, a healthier pawn chain, you know, a healthier pawn situation than they had before. So we got rook to c7, giving a check. We got rook to d7, rook takes d7, king takes d7. And we have bishop to d2, setting up a nice little trap that would normally be a trap, but in this particular situation, it's not a trap. But Wesley So thinks that it's enough of a trap to, you know, go knight f to d5. And the little trap I was talking about, you know, if we had, you know, let's say we just got pawn hungry and took the pawn on a2, we'd see bishop to c4, kind of trapping the knight. But we actually can see a alternate move with e3, you know, kind of knocking that bishop off. So it's not the end of the world in this particular position. But, you know, generally, like I say, you want to be careful when you're snapping pawns off the board because it could be a poison pawn there. And so, like I said, we have knight f to d5. We got a3, and so we're nudging that knight back there in d3. You know, hoping that the bishop will trade, and we got a nice little, you know, completely passed pawn. All right, so we have B3, got king to D6, king to F3. All right, so we got knight back to C5. And so we have pawn takes E4, knight takes E4. And so you guys are seeing that these bishops, you know, are getting really, really harassed and pushed around by these knights, even though the position is very open. And so we have bishop to C1. We got E5, advancing that pawn forward. We got B4. All right, so knight E to C3. All right, so we got bishop back to F1. So like I said, I mean, you see these bishops are literally at their starting squares. I mean, you know, they're just at the complete edge of the board, not doing, you know, the ultimate that you would think that bishops would be doing, and these knights are just completely dominating them by sticking together. And so we have E4, passed pawns must be pushed, and you know, it's a completely passed pawn we have here in the middle of the board, and that's one of the major strengths that that black has. So we have king to F2, and we have king to E5, bishop to H3, got B6, making sure that we don't have any you know, bishop coming behind the pawn situations. And we have bishop to B2, and we have the very strong king to D4. And as you see, I mean, you know, black is just continuously just penetrating into white's position. You know, white's not really able to do much about it. So we have bishop back to F1, trying to prevent king to D3. So we have B5 just putting a clamp down and just like further, you know, restricting the bishop. And so we got king to E1, king to E3, bishop to C1. So we got to move back. We got to move king back to D4. And so we see bishop to B2 and E3. And the box is just closing, you know, more and more. So we have bishop to A1. And so we got G6. And we got bishop to H3. And as you can see, black has a lot of reserve tempo with their pawns. So, you know, if they do need to waste a couple moves, they have the ability to. So we got king to D3. And so we have bishop to C8. All right, so we got knight to B1. So bishop to B2, and you see black is just like continuously just attacking every piece that black or that white has on the board. So we got knight to D2. So bishop back to G4, trying to prevent, make sure we prevent E2. So we have knight to C3. So bishop takes C3. You can't stand that pressure, man. That pressure is just too hot to take. So we got king takes C3, king to E2, and so we have knight to C4, bishop to C8. You know, Wesley So says you can go ahead and have that pawn. I'll have one of your pawns. So bishop takes A6. We got king to D4, just making sure we protect our pawn here. And so we got H4. So knight to B1, king to D1, knight to C3, king to C2. We got G5, H takes G5, H takes G5, and we got G4. And so we got king to C4, bishop back to C8, king to B4, king to D3. And so we have E2 because the knight is from behind protecting this pawn here. And so we got king back to D2. And if you guys want to go ahead and pause the video real quick, super late in the game, but if you want to pause the video and see the strongest move that black actually has to play, and it is very counterintuitive. So like I said, if you want to go ahead and stop the video real quick and see what black actually played here, you know, feel free to do so. All right, now for those of you that literally just abandoned your knight completely altogether and found king to A3, you're the real MVP. I didn't see that move myself. I was like, nah, that ain't nothing you do, bro. Like you just like, you know what, knight, I don't even care about you no more. Like you on your own. Like, man, it's just abandon as much as you can. But I mean, the clear idea is, you know, if you take with the king here, you know, this pawn promotes and you can't have that. So the knight is untouchable here. And it's a pretty interesting in-game concept when you protect a pawn with a knight from behind. That's the best way you want to do it in in-game. So, you know, we have bishop to F5, we got B4, bishop to D3, we got B3, and you know, these split pawns two files apart. There's just no way to stop them. So you're kind of forced into this situation. So that is that game. And then I have, like as promised, the puzzle for you guys. Now this is also a blockade situation. So like I said, if you want to set it up on your own board or set up on your computer at home, I will give you the answer in the next video. All right, I appreciate it, guys. You guys have a good one.